I wanted to say a big thank you to our sponsors. One of our sponsors is Shine Solutions Group. Shine Solution Group is a technology consultancy that has been empowering their enterprise and government partners with pragmatic technology solutions for over 20 years. Learn more at shinesolutions.com. Also, a big thank you to SAS, giving you the power to know. Through innovative software and services, SAS empowers and inspires data advocates around the world to transform data into intelligence. Committed to diversity. Did you know about the Women in Analytics network that they have? It's a SAS-sponsored networking program aimed to strengthen diversity in the analytics field. Check it out in the show notes below. They're definitely committed to it as they're helping us with this diversity series too. I also would like to tell you about Growing Data. Growing Data is a consultancy that helps organizations unlock the full potential of their data. They work with some of Australia's most successful organizations from finance. They work with people like ANZ Bank, through to biotechnology, companies like CSL, and all the way to construction, working with companies like Metrocon. They help these and many more companies solve their most challenging data-related problems in analytics, machine learning, data engineering, and data governance. While I was at ANZ Bank, I got the pleasure to work with the team at Growing Data, and I can tell you for a fact they are top-notch. I highly recommend Growing Data. Find out more at growingdata.com.au. Also, a big thank you to Talent Insights. Talent Insights are Australia's leading data specialist recruitment business. They are experts in recruitment strategy and delivery for analytics and data teams. They are the go-to recruitment business for all your data roles in Australia, and they can help both with permanent hires and short-term project-focused data resources. I've used Talent Insights in the past, and I've always found them fantastic to work with. Visit them at talentinsights.com.au. Hi, and welcome to episode 12 of our diversity and leadership series. It's called #SheLeads. We're doing this in partnership with She Loves Data. This is the last one of the series, and it's been such an amazing journey. We've had fantastic guests, amazing co-hosts from She Loves Data. The conversations have been super insightful, extremely interesting. At least I've found them like that. I hope you have as well. It's been interesting having such a diverse set of guests and co-hosts that can help each person identify their blind spots and see where they need to change their perspectives in order so we can all improve as leaders. I think that these are the really important conversations that we should be having, and that's what we wanted to bring to you directly. Today, we cap off those discussions with another perspective about resetting the future of work and how companies like Tibco are leading the way in helping more workers cope with the current difficult times. I'd like to welcome back Jana, Marle Zizkova. She Loves Data's co-founder, Fearless MD. Jana, thank you again for your wonderful collaboration. I hope that this episode won't be the last. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for, again, having me for the last episode. I'm excited to talk to Alan and hear about all the interesting stuff that is ahead of us in this episode.
Amazing. And to welcome our special guest, Alan Ho. He is the Senior Director for Global Partnerships Marketing at Tibco. Alan, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you for having me here today.
Fantastic. So I wanted to kick things off by asking about your little bit about your role at Tibco, a little bit about yourself, and if you can tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So hi everyone. I'm currently the head of marketing for partner marketing globally. So I basically look after all marketing matters with regards to partners' route to market. So we basically look at how do we support our partners, the ecosystem into the market that we requires partner collaboration. I've been in IT sector, or rather the tech sector, for the past 20 plus years. I came from many companies, the largest open source company to the largest semiconductor to the leaders in VI, right? So I've been in roles of services sales, and then of course for the past 10 years my focus is actually on marketing. I'm also an adjunct professor in Singapore Management University. So I taught in customer relationship using analytics with an Asian perspective, and I'm actually truly happy, right, to be able to share my experience with the next generation of workforce, right, those who are looking forward to enter into the industry.
Amazing.
Alan, you've been working with She Loves Data for such a long time, and you've been diversity champion and ambassador for diversity, I would say. How did you even start with that? How did you move into that field, and what made you to decide that supporting diversity is an important part of any profession or even life?
Well, to be honest, right, for the past 20 plus years, I've been holding roles, regional role, right, for the whole Asia Pacific. So I travel quite a fair bit. From what I have seen, right, especially when you go into countries that develop versus developing, I actually see a lot of disadvantage. I wouldn't say disadvantage, or rather laggard, right, who actually can play a bigger role in how Asia Pacific transform. So through my career, as far back as I would say 10 plus years ago, right, one of the things that I kind of pushing was how does open source reduce the barrier of entry for technology for those who wants to go into this sector, right? Because back in the past, when we talk about accessibility, only those with dollar and cents are able to access the latest and the greatest tech, right? Which it itself is a barrier. So for the last 5 years working with She Loves Data, when I look at diversity, I'm not just looking at gender diversity, right? I'm also looking at cultural diversity. I'm looking at orientation diversity, and so on and so forth, right? And as much as I want to say that Asia Pac do not have diversity issue, well, that's kind of not true. It's only the degree of diversity that's not in place, right? So Singapore tends to be in better equipped to handle it versus countries that has a little bit of challenges that are still being faced today for those who are slightly disadvantaged. Right? So I really want to spend my time, giving back to the society and see, what can I do, right, in my capacity to support those that require help.
That's amazing. That's the best way to make change, with the coalition of the willing and being able to bring different perspectives together, which definitely, Alan, you've done so well. I wanted to ask you about some of the impact that this crazy year has had on work and on technology, and particularly the adoption. There was a lot of technologies over the last few years have been providing capabilities for people to work remotely and have sort of distributed teams locally and globally, but that's been definitely accelerated through this pandemic. How have you seen the changes that this year has brought on in terms of accelerating the use of these type of technologies? What have you seen from your perspective? And can you share a bit of your thoughts on that side?
So I think this has basically brought forward digitization, right, by many years, right? In fact, I think it has impacted in such a great deal in countries that are not ready, will face a bigger challenge, especially from a skill set perspective, because usually what happened in the industry is you need to look for an significant event before the industry transform, right? Therefore, if you look at banking sectors and you look at the tech sectors, right, it's always in the forefront with regards to adopting technology. But if you look at other sectors, right, like manufacturing or even textile, fashion. This does take time, right? Especially to get people comfortable and get people to change. However, the pandemic has forced everybody to change, all right? Change in the way that we work together, change in the way that we communicate with others, and change the way that we engage with our customers, right? And this is pretty important in terms of survival, right? Gone are the days that you say, hey, I got my small little kingdom sitting in a city. I sell to my local audience, right? But if they don't walk into your store, who are you selling to?
Yeah.
Right. So it's about expansion of market. It's about when you're able to digitize, are you able to reach out to new market that you never thought of, right? So I would say this. This is the year of change, and we need to give everybody an equal opportunity, or for those who are willing to change, or for those who are willing to upskill, to learn about tech, to have the opportunity to actually ride on the wave, right, and be part of the change. Now, I will also say that for those who conserve, or rather do not know how to, these are the people that needs help, right? And these are the people that we truly want to guide them along the way and say, hey, let's with no judgment and with no I would say concern or difficulty, right? Here is something that we think that it might support you in your journey to change, especially in the industry that you're looking at.
That's a really kind approach that you take. I really like that, and I know that in so many communities, so many places, people have been talking about their new COVID skill and kind of like how they spend their time, what type of skills have they spend their time developing. And I think that when you have leaders such as yourself pushing the message that we have to welcome people from all walks of life and being able to lower the barriers of entry to industries and professional areas, that definitely makes a big difference.
So Alan, what has been as well happening, and we've seen so many changes regarding the gig economy and gig workers. There are so many people, including actually in my company, we are working with contractors to kind of identify the skills that we need in this particular times. And people want to be a little bit more flexible. They want to be working, remotely. It's the new normal. That's the standard now. But how do you view that for a large organizations like you? Do you think this is the way to go? And do you think as well that the gig workers are going to be in a long term okay with their way of working remotely, flexibly, because they are kind of missing out on a certain promotions and benefits, but as well possibly on some kind of upskilling and promoting themselves within one organization? What's your take on that?
Well, so there's actually no right or wrong in this sense. So from my perspective, we must recognize that the workforce has changed, right? The workforce from the young, the fresh grad, or those in their early career versus those that's in the 40s, the 50s, right? Like myself, right, in the 40s. And then the question will be, right, what is in your life that actually matters, right? Gig economy is actually here to stay, right? It allows flexibility. It allows company to be more nimble. All right. On the worker side, it also gives them more time. They get to do more than what they are tied to, right? When you have a formal employer, so it is a win-win situation in that sense. However, I do think that gig economy does has its pro and con. Right, as anyone who works and as they mature, you start a family, you start to have responsibility, and this is where welfare companies that is provided to employee actually matters, right? As simple as health insurance, right? And these are pretty important if you have new family members, right? So I think from a Tibco perspective, it is a hybrid, right? There are things that we do contractually through freelancing or subcontractors or contractors, and there are things that we hire, right? And it really depends on from an organization point of view of whether that specific skill set is critical, right? When it's critical, it tends to not have it be the responsibility of a contractor, whereas and we do want to develop our own internal capability to mitigate any potential risk, right? But we must remember, digital nomad is here to stay. So it is a new way of working, and we just have to embrace it, right?
I definitely agree with you, and I think in the video that we will listen to a little later on after our chat, Sarah talks about the new learnings and the new upskillings that, it's about hiring individuals for their skill set rather than for career within the organization. So I think it's a complete cultural change of the mindset. And it allows as well organizations, to be honest, to hire the talent that is scarce, specifically in technology field and data field, across the globe. Suddenly the borders do not matter, and suddenly we are able to actually work remotely, and no one is asking about locations for some job descriptions that are out there specifically in technology. So this is great. It's a good opportunity for everyone, being hired across the globe.
Exactly. I just have one point to add as well. From a gig contractor perspective, who has many experience. In fact, as a company like us, we actually can tap on the wide spectrum of experience that this individual will gather through his working experience with multiple people across or multiple employer, right, across the time span, right? Especially when you talk about marketing, I do want to hear, what you do in this, what is your experience here? What's your experience there? How do you help me, right? From your collective knowledge and experiences you have gained, right, from multiple employer you work with. So it is beneficial.
That's so true. And one thing that I found really interesting during this pandemic is that people have been moving away out of the cities. At least we've seen this in Australia, that a big proportion of people have moved into rural areas since they've been able to do their work remotely, and obviously people are hoping that this trend continues. I think it's the lifestyle freedom and flexibility that a lot of workers have been wanting, that was kind of like forced upon companies, and people are definitely taking advantage of that. In the case of Tibco, did you guys see either a change in approach from the company or an evolution in thinking, or did you already have measures to allow people to work remotely to large degrees? Has there been many changes from a geographical perspective as a result of what we saw this year?
So to be honest, we do have a workforce that does work remotely, even before the pandemic, right? I think the pandemic basically amplified, right, why it is important. If we would have, if everybody would have just is required to go to the office on a regular basis, that typically will cripple the organization, right, to a certain extent. When the pandemic hits, right, and I think we are better equipped when we need to handle such situation. But I would say this, right? I read the news about in Australia where people are beginning to feel frustrated. People are beginning to feel it's like cabin fever, right? They suddenly have a quiet sense of trying to figure out what is their purpose in life, right? And I think this pandemic has brought forward, right? The feeling of what do you do in your career, what do you do in your life, and that gets people to think about how they want their life post-pandemic going to be, right? And that will include, and I personally think so, will include a more balanced lifestyle than what it was, right? Now, that doesn't mean I work less, but I think I will increase my emphasis on what matters to me, like championing this diversity cause, right? Because if I can do something more, why don't I do it? That's the question.
That's really great, and I think following up from that, there's a lot of some leading organizations, kind of like the World Economic Forum and the video that we'll hear later. They're saying that there's new imperatives of leadership that are required in this new world, and I know that this is an area that you're also passionate about and have been thinking about. I wanted to ask you specifically about a more human-centric leadership and how that can be brought to life and created as a culture within an organization. And if you see that as one of the important pillars of this post-pandemic world that we're hopefully will be going into soon.
So I don't think this is something new. I think it's an evolution of what has already been done in the past research, right? There's always this saying, right? They say, if you keep your employee happy, the employee will serve the customer better and keep the customer happy, right? So that there's a lot of paper, academic paper written about it, right? And all this boils down to human-centric leadership, because it is all about how you work with your employee, right? To develop a trust relationship, to build a culture that will serve the customer better. Right, and I think at the end of the day, the biggest challenge is the measurement, right? As a corporate entity, right, your stakeholders are the shareholders as the biggest. Your responsibility is to deliver shareholders value, right? If that is the case, Ran, what line do you draw to say that, hey, there are certain things that we need to focus on revenue, right? And there are certain measurement we need to focus on employee satisfaction. And I think a lot of company tends to fall short, right, in having an exact execution, or they might be doing it, but there's no interlink, right? The dots are not connected, right? And this actually sometimes deviated from its original intention. I think, for those who are encouraging in terms of human-centric leadership, right? It is all about lead by example, right? This can never be a bottoms up, right? I truly believe, right? If a company believes in it, it starts with the CEO, right? The CEO must enforce this down to his COO, CFO, CMO, or the C level, so that the whole organization structure can feel the cultural change, right? Or the cultural requirement as an organization. So it is important, and it will continue to play an important role.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And when we're talking about culture, there is as well a culture to give back to the community. And She Loves Data, Tibco, and Singapore Management University put together an amazing initiative that is called Back on Your Feet. And I remember when we talked about it together with my colleague from She Loves Data, Nina, who's been critical as well to drive this project. When we started to talk about it about 3-4 months ago, I felt like this is such an amazing way to change the way how to learn and upskill people. Because what we said is like, let's not do a webinar that is just about webinar, but let's do hands-on sessions. Let's do it with a very high quality of content. Let's get Professor Rafael from SMU, who is a amazing advocate of data visualization, dashboarding, who's an expert in business intelligence. And let's put together a program that will give back to the community, but not only the learning, but as well certification. And that was critical, to give to people, to their hands, something that they can then, use in our interviews and have something that they can tangibly show that, hey, I've learned something. How did it all started? Tell our listeners about your view on this amazing initiative. And it started with like 500 people being registered last weekend.
Well, myself and Professor Rafael from Singapore Management University has been friends for a long time, right? And we have constantly been debating how do we reduce the barrier of entry, right? So from my perspective, I do see two important goals, right? One is to reduce the barrier of entry, and two is to create a non-judgmental environment that anyone can feel comfortable in and out without disclosure, right? What they're doing, how they want to do, and so that they are comfortable to learn and ask questions. So when I approach She Loves Data, right, your mandate of supporting the female community plus non-female, the males and everybody else, right, actually resonate to me pretty well, right? And I say, hey, we have a community that's driving the cause, right? We have the university that provide high quality material. And Tibco is willing to kind of support it from a software usage perspective, right? And say, hey, we give you a year free use of the software, all right? Go and do magic with it, right? And it is a learning journey. If you go to any training courses, what tends to happen is you attend a 2-day course, you cram all the way in, right? You're supposed to ingest it in a quick manner, and you're supposed to quickly try to do something about it. 3 weeks later, if you stop using it, you'll forget about it. All right. And you kind of like go back to your work desk and then go say, oh, what have I learned? This is where the problem starts to arise, right? Such training doesn't work. It must have the collaboration element. It must have the community element. It must have material that actually support the whole notion of to be neutral, right? You learn dashboarding. You're not learning the tool. The tool is just a means to an end, right? Where we provide you an opportunity to learn, right? So I'm actually pretty glad we can help in this, right? I'm pretty happy that I'm pretty surprised the first run without much promotion, we got 500 registration, and in fact when I heard we accepted 320 and the rest went on with list, and I hear from Professor Rafael, and he was saying that actually almost 300 show up. So we have a dropout rate about 19 out of 300, and that's unheard of from a marketing perspective.
Yeah, it's such an amazing initiative, and it's so inspiring to hear what you've done. I wanted to ask you, do you have any lessons for other people or other organizations that might want to do something similar, or what advice could you give around making these types of initiatives happen and bringing them to life in the real world? I'm sure it would have taken a lot of background work from your side and a lot of preparation. So I wanted to dig into that a little bit more.
Sure. Personally, I think being authentic is actually one of the most important requirement when you come to such initiative, right? A lot of people will comment, hey, this is marketing. Personally, working with Jana and Nina, right, together with Professor Rafael, to me, it is not about the branding of Tibco. It's about what do you really want to give back to the society, right? So if you are being authentic of the outcome that you want, the sky is the limit, right? And you are able to actually develop meaningful program, right? The second thing is we should never do hit and run, right? Especially when it comes to supporting the community or to support a journey, especially a transformation journey, right? So the intent is really to have at least a perspective of what is going to happen in the 1-2 years time frame, right? Truly be truthful to yourself and say, hey, I want to help. And 3, roll up your sleeve and do it. Don't wait.
Walk the talk.
Walk the talk, exactly.
Exactly. Look, Alan, having a male allies, having all-inclusive teams, support teams for all those initiatives is very important. What would you say to other male leaders or any leaders, in fact, to encourage them to take on community-based activities, giving back, supporting other people out there with their upskilling so they are relevant, they are building the future-proofed careers? What would you say from your perspective is important, and where do you even start?
Well, personally, it's still about authenticity, right? It's about what you really want in your heart, right? That you want to do. I think that's from a male perspective, right? It's all about being non-judgmental, right? Being understanding, right? No one sits in my chair, sit and then say, hey, Alan, you should do this, you should do that. So why should you be the one doing that for others, right? So it's all about listening and willing to support, right? I think, especially from a community perspective, being a community, you will have a very diverse opinion, right? And sometimes this opinion does not resonate with you. It doesn't mean that you stop. What you do is agree to disagree, agree that it is important, and agree that the outcome is positive. Do it, right? You don't have to be right all the time, right? And so my view to all the leaders out there, right? First of all, you must believe in it, right? If you wake up in the morning and say, oh, today is too tired, I'm going to drop it. There you go. I hope that is not the case, but you should always wake up and say, hey, I'm ready to go, right? And this is where you will truly bring value to the community that you're supporting.
That's amazing. And how do you how have you been able to, I guess, look within yourself and find the initiatives that you believe in strongly enough to be able to drive them like that? Because I think that people sometimes that's something that people find that they're missing, that they might want a different the world to work differently, and they are interested in things, but having the perseverance and the tenacity that you've demonstrated, where does that come from for you, and how do you think it could other people could find it within themselves or develop it?
So I think for my case, right, it's actually my life experience that leads me towards it, right? It's my experience in school, my experience traveling across the world, right? With emphasis in Asia Pacific. I go to countries like Vietnam, Philippines. I travel to run marathons around the world, right?
Wow.
And some of the races brought me through villages. And when I look at it, you cannot imagine, right? Here we are, dressing up in full high-tech running gear, very nice 2X. Well, I should not give any brand a promotion here, right? A very nice compression tights, very expensive hydration vest. And you run up the hill, and right beside you is this small little kid. Looks like it's like 5 years old, pretty small, barefooted, running up with you. And you look at the smile on their face and say, hey, they are actually happy, right? Despite not having what I have in Singapore or what many of us have in cities that we live in, right? And that gives you, and that makes me wonder, right? Does this kid actually has an equal opportunity, right, to make it, right? And it always saddens me when I see how we tend to be wasteful, unappreciative of the environment that we are in, and here we are. Is this barefooted kid, running beside me in my hundreds of dollars of running gear, right? This is just mind blowing, right? So the inspiration is, for me, is from my life experience, right? And because of what I've seen, I tend to want to do a little bit more, right? And hopefully I am doing a good job at it, right? Or rather some contribution.
No, definitely big contribution. And I love that perspective. I love that approach. That is fantastic. And I think, Alan, that is an amazing note to end this section on. For the people listening, please stick around. We have a pre-prepared interview with Sarah Tiew. She's a fellow at the World Economic Forum, focusing on the future of work and how we can prepare ourselves for that. So we continue the topic. But at this point, I want to say thank you so much, Alan. That was extremely, extremely inspiring and insightful. And I love your perspectives. And thank you so much for sharing them with us today. And Jana, this has been such an amazing journey. I hope that we can continue with some other idea. This has been, a first for us, and we've loved the partnership that we've had with She Loves Data, and Data Futurology has been phenomenal. Thank you as well.
Thank you so much. It has been amazing. Amazing opportunity to actually talk to so many diverse and different leaders, not only about tech, but about inspiring stories like Alan's story, because we are really grateful to have partners like you, and we hope that we will do many more things together in 2021. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.